The Black Blood Tombs. The central processing plant's main gate was a massive, rusted structure, but it was surprisingly unmanned. Marius used the Iron Serpent's reinforced bumper to simply ram the gate off its hinges. The sound echoed across the plains, a terrible, grinding screech of tortured metal. "We move fast. We came here for two things: the lab components and the black blood," Marius commanded, cutting the engine inside the courtyard. We climbed out, the silence of the massive, skeletal refinery towers pressing down on us. We moved through the complex, following Vlad's detailed map of the pre-war setup. The lab was exactly where he said, a small, sealed room beneath the main distillation column. The stabilizer components, intact glass vials and microcircuit boards designed to manage the volatile bioalgae fuel reaction, were dusty but pristine. I carefully packed them into a radiation-proof metal box. Next, the fuel. We backed the Iron Serpent into the massive loading bay, coupling its integrated tanker trailer to the last remaining storage valve. Marius worked the heavy manual pump, sweat beading on his forehead despite the cool air filtration system. The black blood was thick and viscous, smelling sickly sweet, like rotting vegetation and concentrated sulfur. It took almost an hour to fill the tanker trailer to capacity, a dangerous load that would last the vault years. "That's it, kid. We got the fuel and the recipe," Marius gasped, sealing the valve. "Time to go before the rest of the tire dogs show up for a share." The burning retreat. We drove the Iron Serpent out of the refinery's courtyard. The sky was turning a toxic, hazy orange as we hit the open plains. And there they were. In the distance, spread across the dead expanse between the refinery and the edge of the tar lands, was a line of tire dogs, at least 8 of them, waiting. They were positioned strategically, rifles raised, trying to force us into one of the deep black sludge pits. "They're not organized, but they're positioned well," Marius observed calmly over the comms. "They want to slow us down so they can swarm us. We can't stop here, or they'll try to climb the tank." "They won't chase us past the edge of the poison," I reasoned, gripping the dash. "They know this land is too dangerous to risk a high-speed pursuit. If we are fast enough, they'll turn back." Marius slammed the accelerator, and the heavy Iron Serpent, hauling its enormous tank of black blood, roared to life. We barreled toward the raiders, its spiked wheels kicking up plumes of toxic black muck. The raiders panicked, firing wildly, their bullets harmlessly pinging off the clean steel armor. "Now, Nikolai, the ground sanitizer. Keep them off the wheels," Marius ordered, swerving hard to avoid a sludge pit that shimmered with an eerie green light. I didn't hesitate. I mashed the red lever repeatedly, short bursts of controlled chaos. The twin jets of fire erupted again, not just in front, but sweeping wide arcs to either side of the truck. The tar land's ground was thick with oil and gases, and each pulse of flame ignited a brief, terrifying blaze that rolled toward the pursuing raiders. The tire dogs were forced to scatter, their patchwork armor smoking, trying to jump over the growing lines of fire or diving into the less corrosive mud. The fiery arcs created a moving barrier of heat and confusion, effectively cutting off their ability to chase or organize a flank. The Iron Serpent sped on, leaving the smoke, the screams, and the fires of the wasteland behind. Marius didn't ease up on the speed until the landscape changed, when the oily black plains gave way to the sharp, dry, yellowed rocks that marked the safe zone around the vault. We were safe. We had the fuel. "That kid," Marius breathed, pulling off his mask as he killed the engine outside the blast doors, "was a masterpiece. You just weaponized the very engine we need to save us." The Exodus plan. We were back in the workshop, unloading the fragile lab components when Vlad came over, a rare playful glint in his eye. He looked at the Iron Serpent's scorched undercarriage. "Is that true, kid?" he asked, his voice low. "You weaponized the truck and you didn't tell me?" I looked at him. I knew he wasn't truly surprised. He'd been expecting the constant surprises, the ingenuity that was my own version of Marius's reckless spirit. He was just playing Marius's game, enjoying the shared secret. We were back and safe, and that was what mattered most to him. He knew deep down that we would be okay, We can't risk everything and everyone every time we need oil, Vlad continued, his playful facade gone, replaced by the weight of leadership. We need to find a way to drill for our own oil. We might have to move. We will create a camp around an oil well that we can run ourselves, produce, distill, and stock our black blood. We need to run generators and not be dependent on batteries anymore. It was a hard decision, uprooting the entire community, but I saw the necessity of his plan. Total self-sufficiency was the only true path to safety. I raised my hand just enough to catch his attention. Vlad sighed, seeing my gesture. Yes, kid, what's in your mind? What do you want to say, or if you trip on it, leave it for another time. Deal? It was a brutal but honest approach, and I knew he was right. I dropped my idea. Elder? I'd say let's wait for another week. Maybe we can find another engine to add to our fleet. We need time to modify at least 2 of them if we can make a 3-engine fleet, to move the entire community at the same time we carry the things we need to the new camp. But more importantly, we need to scout the Northwest Territories first. He looked at me, his eyes widening slightly. How do you know I was thinking of the Northern Territories? I looked at him, then at Marius, who was now watching us with a proud, knowing smile. If Marius is from Moinesht, you are from there too, right? Vlad smiled softly, a wave of pride washing over his face. You are a smart kid, Nikolai. Yes, I was thinking of Moinesht. It was a little town where most people worked for the black blood industries, as it was the main source of jobs in the town. You are right. We will scout first, and we will see. We build a new engine or we take a new engine from someone. No kills, I mean it, okay? The next mission was clear. Scout the Northwest and build the Exodus fleet. The new plan is set. Scouting Moinesht for an oil well and building 2 more heavy-duty vehicles to transport the community. The secret scout. Later that day, in a moment when I was alone, I gave in to my curiosity. I took the small, nimble acid roller, a stripped-down 4-wheeler we used for quick transport in the immediate area, and decided to go where I always wanted to see, the ruins of the casino, a famous building that was once right next to the Black Sea. On the way to the coast, I spotted something. It looked peaceful and untouched, a collection of massive abandoned hangars and barracks. I stopped the acid roller and checked my salvaged map. The map was telling me that I was near the Mihail Kogalniceanu military base. How could Vlad have missed that? If it was still standing, it could have an untouched motor pool. I needed to tell him immediately and get some help. Maybe we could find the 2 extra engines there. I jumped back into the acid roller and mastered it back to the vault. Elder! I shouted out loud as I burst into the main cavern. Vlad appeared from the storage room, his face hardening as he saw the state of the vehicle. Where have you been, Nikolai? And why is the acid roller's engine hot? Did you drive it? You got out? That's what you did? Nikolai, don't do that ever again, you hear me? Never. I was scared. I had never seen the elder so angry. He came right into my face. Look at me, Nikolai. You put yourself in danger, and most of all, you put all of us in danger. Do you understand me? I froze, too scared to say more, but I knew he wasn't just trying to scare me. He was making sure I understood the real danger to myself and the community. I forced the words out. But, Elder, I found something that might be useful for our plan. Mihail Kogalniceanu. Does that tell you anything? He looked at me for a long second, his anger flickering, replaced by intense focus. He then called for Marius. Come here, Marius. I think Nikolai has something to say. Would you be interested to know what he has to say? I was looking at both of them thinking they were playing their guessing game again, so I just blurted it out again. Mihail Kogalniceanu military base, engines, maybe. That is where I was. I am sorry I broke the rule, but I wanted to see how it is to be a scout. Sorry, will not happen again. A heavy silence fell on all 3 of us. Then I heard Vlad's voice, calm and serious. Marius, take what you need and take Nikolai with you so he can show you where he's been and have a look around the area. But both be very careful, okay? Then as Marius went to grab his gear, Vlad looked at me and winked. That was the sign. He wasn't truly angry. He just needed me to feel the gravity of the danger. but he was proud of my initiative. He probably wanted me to do it within his terms, but I had brought back a prize. The mission was on. Mihail Kogalnicianu was next. The Mihail Kogalnicianu treasure. We reached a point about 500 meters from the base, stopping in a shallow dip in the ground to scan the area. We watched for several minutes, confirming no movement or tire tracks disturbed the dust. We disembarked from the Iron Serpent and proceeded on foot. We immediately noticed two massive gates on an untouched hangar. I nudged Marius. "Let's try to see that hangar, it looks untouched." He looked uneasy. "Too dangerous, kid. If we make a noise opening those doors, we might get visitors," I insisted. "There are no marks on the ground, let's try." With a heave, we managed to force the rusted doors open enough to squeeze through. We walked down a ramp that led deep underground. When we got to the bottom, I pointed the flashlight forward, and the beam immediately bounced back to me. A reflection from a headlight. It was a vehicle. We hurried closer. We found two trucks, new-looking big military flatbeds. They had metal cages or kind of barracks welded to the back. I didn't know what they were. We reached them both. One was loaded with ammunition, Marius said, and the other with AKs. That's what Marius called the rifles. They were just sitting there. I wondered, is this a trap? Or did we just find a treasure? Marius climbed into the cab of one of the trucks and called me to hold the light so he could see what he was doing. He stabbed the ignition with his knife and twisted. It was the miracle we wanted. The engine roared to life, a deep, clean sound. He immediately stopped it and looked at me, his eyes shining with pure adrenaline. "Nikolai, we need to get them out and to the vault, now," he whispered urgently. "Hide close by, I will add the acid roller in here so we can tow it, and you're going to drive one truck, and I'm going to drive the other one, towing the acid roller. You get me? Don't make a sound until I'm back in, and to know it's me, I will flash the light on the acid roller twice. You got it?" "Yep," I replied, my voice hoarse. It was the biggest day on my first scout. Well, second scout. 2 trucks, ammunition, and AKs, the biggest find ever, and mastering the drive of one of the giants, all on the same day. The elders' terms and the new giants. We returned to the vault hours later, the 3-vehicle convoy rumbling through the blast doors. The sight of the 2 pristine, heavy-duty military trucks, already fitted with robust people-carrying vessels, left Vlad speechless. He walked around the new trucks, touching the smooth pre-war metal. Then he looked at me, his face a mixture of relief and sternness. "Kid," he said, his voice softening, "I am very proud of you. But let's not forget that you broke the rules, so next time you want to scout, let me know so we can plan a scouting mission, okay?" His military mind couldn't stand the free spirit I was, but he was right. I knew he wanted me to learn his skills to be better than he was, to be ready if something happened to him to take the lead. He wanted to teach me the critical thinking that was essential for survival. I promised him. I will never do such things again. After telling him that, I saw an ease of light come over his face, followed by a wink and a short smile. "We have to upgrade our new engines, Nikolai. Are you on for it? Surprise me if you can, and... Kid, I am very proud of you, and I mean it, kid. But don't try me again. Now, let's see what you can come up with for these 2 giants. And don't forget some space for some people transportation. These are vessels." The tragedy of the vessels. Something on the back of my mind was lurking heavily. A question. It was almost too easy. The engines ready to run after all these years? It kept lingering in my mind, and I went to tell the elder and Marius what I was thinking. "Elder, Marius?" I said, stopping them from their planning. "Can I say something? The giants, it was almost too easy. Engines ready to run after all these years? Don't you think it was too easy?" They looked at each other, then back at me. "You know, kid, you might be right," the elder replied, his military training taking over. "We need to have a night watch, a sentinel for tonight. And if there is no wind to cover the tire marks, we need to check that first thing early morning. Now we have these guns. If we get unwanted visitors, the watch will let us know, and we will be ready. You hear me, kid? We will be ready. You go to rest for now. We'll take it from here." Don't miss a minute from your sleep. I need you to be in good shape tomorrow so we can upgrade the giants, and the day after, we're going to plan a scout for the northern lands. Go now, have some sleep, and don't be worried. Sleep, kid, and good thinking. I see you learn good skills. That is very important. Rest, kid. We need you well tomorrow. I was proud of the elder. He gave me his approval, and that was my treasure. He believed in me. I wanted to record this moment in my book before I went to sleep, so it would not be forgotten. The next day, I woke up, eager to start working on the giants. I was examining one of the rear people-carrying cages when I stumbled upon a tucked-away secret door. It was cut into the metal frame. I pulled at it, and it opened to a small, hidden space inside the vessel. 2 bodies were lying there, dead. That's when it dawned on me. They were the people who owned the giants. That's why the trucks were in good working condition. They died not more than maybe a month ago. I called the elder. Have a look inside, back, at the back. Move that piece of metal, can you see anything? Vlad moved the panel and saw the scene. Nikolai, I think you are right. That's why we never got anyone looking for the ground marks. They starved to death. I think they were the ones that owned them. He stood up, his face solemn. We should bury them here as they honor us with their means for survival. Let's talk with our people about their sacrifice. It was like they knew their trucks would get in good hands and for a good purpose. Let's honor their deaths and pray for their souls. The elder was right. Their deaths had become our hope for a better place. I felt a cold wind on my face, a deep feeling I couldn't explain, as if their souls were happy that we found them, and that their giants would serve a good purpose. It was their way to say good luck. I got something to remember them by, a small metallic box. Marius said it was a tobacco holder that had a picture of a little girl. Maybe she was their daughter. I don't know. But if she's still alive, I want to tell her that they waited for her, and they will keep watching for her through me because I will protect her in her parents' honor. The solemn vow. We stood by the 2 fresh graves. The entire community gathered in the main cavern. The elder Vlad presided over a quiet, solemn ceremony. Many cried and thanked the dead for the hope they had given us. It was a difficult moment, but we needed to plan ahead. Vlad's leadership evolved immediately. Recognizing the depth of regional knowledge held by others, he brought more men into the planning circle. They shared information about hidden roads and abandoned towns the elder hadn't known, all leading toward the target, the northern lands and Moynest. I felt the pull of the mission not just for the community but for myself. I had made a promise to the owners of the vessels. I had to go. When the elder asked me to stay back, fearing the loss of both Marius and me, I stood firm, holding the small metallic tobacco box with the picture of the little girl. The elder saw the resolve in my eyes and he relented. The path to Tasbuga Peak. We loaded the acid roller with supplies and set off. 2.5 days later, after driving in shifts, Marius woke me up. Kid, wake up. We are here in Moynest, he whispered. It was just ruins, a husk of a city, no different from so many others. Marius killed the engine inside. Nikolai, there is not much of what we look for here. We need to find a place a bit isolated that has at least one oil well nearby. I think I just know a place. He pointed toward the horizon. In those mountains, can you see them? Or are you too sleepy? I squinted. What mountains are they? They are not that big, I said, comparing them mentally to the truly massive scarred peaks we had seen on other journeys. Marius smiled, that rare, genuine smile that eased the weariness from his face. Not big? Nikolai, see that tall peak? That is Tașbuga Peak. That is where one of my jobs was before I became a mechanic in the oil industry. There are loads of oil pumps, or how the elder calls them, oil wells. If we are lucky, maybe not too many sought refuge up in the mountain. I know a hidden route to the top. Just be my second pair of eyes. I need you to see what I might miss, okay? We drove for another hour or more, finally reaching the top, the peak and the prize. We saw no signs of human activity. The peak itself was exposed, but we soon found what Marius was looking for, an ideal location. Tucked away in a natural depression, sheltered from the worst winds, was an abandoned oil well. We checked it. It was perfect for what we needed. Marius then pointed to a collection of rusted tanks and pipes nestled nearby a brick-made giant warehouse. There is what they called a park. It's actually an oil collector and distribution point. It gathered oil from here up in the mountain and pumped far down below to a bigger depot. It's a good find and free of scavengers. The problem was the distance. It was a long way, but the reward, self-sufficient black blood, made it worth the risk and the effort. 2.5 days later, we were back to the vault. "Good news, Vlad," Marius announced, throwing the map onto the elder's desk. "We found a good spot. Vărful Tașbuga, no scavengers, and we have an oil well right in the middle of a depression, plus a collector park. We might even be able to find necessary parts for the reductor gears to get it pumping oil to the surface." The phased exodus plan. The elder was overjoyed. He immediately gathered the council. "We have good news and now we prepare. We must tell the community to pack only necessary things so we have enough space for the materials we need to get to the site," Vlad instructed. "We must build a dome, a vault, something strong, and maybe an underground secret vault for any case, to be prepared and safe for anything that might happen. But we need to plan this very well." Vlad outlined the plan for the 3 vessels and the move. Phase 1. The first man. Transport. We need to have one giant, which we will now call the settler, stay with the first transport. This will only be men capable of labor and defense. One of us will drive with them to start building the vault immediately. This first giant must be packed with building materials and tools. Phase 2. Construction and security. The men will work on building the exterior protection, the dome, and establishing a defensible perimeter. Once the site can offer protection, we will move everything else. Phase 3. The final move. The Iron Serpent and the second giant, which we will call the Defender, fully kitted with armament, will carry the rest of the community and the remaining supplies safely to the new site. This was the plan. It would take time and resources, but it was the path to the future. The first exodus. The farewell was quiet, serious, and tinged with hope. After the solemn service for the 2 lost souls, every man going north understood the gravity of their cargo and their mission. Giant 1. The settler, now packed with every available sheet of clean steel, groaned under the load of tools, welding tanks, and heavy anchors, the foundation of our new vault. I climbed into the cab of Giant 2, the Defender, feeling the immensity of the vehicle around me. This was it, my first true mission as a driver. My hands gripped the steering wheel, still raw from welding, and I felt the presence of the little girl's picture in the tobacco box tucked into my pocket. I was driving for her now. Marius was next to me in the settler, giving me a final nod through the windscreen. "Easy on the clutch, kid. She's heavy. And remember the promise. We don't come back until that fence is up," he yelled over the idling engines. The 2 giants lumbered out of the old blast door, the sound of their massive tires rolling across the scarred earth, signaling the true start of the exodus. Driving the Defender was a revelation. It felt less like a truck and more like a tank, powerful, steady, and utterly unstoppable. I quickly found the rhythm. Smooth, long shifts, and letting the engine's brute force manage the broken terrain. I focused on the road, my nerves settling as the kilometers disappeared. With Marius beside me, leading the way, and a crew of the strongest men following, I was confident. The lost souls of the vessels were watching over us. Securing the peak. The journey to Vărful Tașbuga took only a day and a half. The route Marius had mapped was hidden and swift, avoiding major ruins. When we finally broke through the tree line and reached the mountain depression, the target was exactly as promised. A solid brick warehouse, part of the old distribution park, and the vital oil well only 20 meters away. We went to work immediately. This was no scouting mission. This was a deployment. The first priority was defense. While half the men established a perimeter with trip flares and the newly issued AKs, Marius and the others focused on the fence line. We used the heavy gauge wire we'd brought, anchoring it to the solid rock with the hydraulic drills, quickly encircling both the warehouse and the oil well into a unified, defensible compound. The sheer act of driving posts into the hard ground felt like claiming the land. My job, with a small crew, was to reinforce the warehouse. The windows were our vulnerability. Using the plasma cutters and angle grinders, we took the prized clean steel sheets from the settler and began welding them across the window openings. The noise was deafening, echoing through the empty mountain air. But every clang of hammer against steel was a layer of protection, transforming the fragile brick structure into a fortress. By the end of the second day, we had accomplished Phase 1. The perimeter fence was secure, and every window and vulnerable access point on the warehouse was covered with impenetrable acid-resistant steel. The brick building was now a squat, iron-plated command center, the seed of the new vault. Marius clapped me on the shoulder, exhausted but proud. "It's done, kid. It's secured. This place belongs to us now." I looked at the oil well, silent and still in the twilight. We had the location, the defense, and the manpower, but we didn't have the black blood pumping yet. The Elders' plan requires the site to be fully operational before the rest of the community can risk the move. We found a great location and secured the perimeter, but the real work, the long-term self-sufficiency, is still pending. The Fortress of Tașbuga. The first phase of the Exodus plan was forged in the exhausting rhythm of labor. 32 men, spurred by the hope carried in the settlers' precious cargo, worked around the clock for 2 solid weeks. The first barrier was the clean steel on the warehouse windows, but the real defense was the massive outer fence. Using axes and saws, the men felled and hauled tree trunks from the lower slopes. They dug a trench 1.5 meters deep around the entire perimeter, setting the trunks vertically and packing the earth tight. It was a solid wall of dense wood and earth, punctuated by sturdy, reinforced steel gates from the giant's hall. High above the gates, we constructed 2 massive sentinel posts, giving the guards an unhindered view of the surrounding mountain paths. The inner courtyard was cleared and readied to receive the rest of the community, safe and sheltered from the elements. The ambition didn't stop there. Plans were drawn up to begin digging an underground vault from within the warehouse floor, an even safer refuge than the original vault could provide. Near starvation and salvation. The only resource that nearly failed us was food. Despite careful rationing, the supplies we brought were almost gone by the end of the first week. The men grew lean and tired, the energy for the heavy labor flagging. Then, in the last few crucial days, a small scouting party struck gold, a healthy wild boar grazing near the lower tree line. It was enough meat to sustain the entire crew, providing the final burst of energy needed to finish the construction. It felt less like luck and more like the first blessing on this new land. Crucially, Marius and a team confirmed the nearby mountain stream was clean fresh water. They established a viable collection point, ensuring the arriving community would have continuous access to life's most essential element. We had secured the location and established basic life support, but 2 weeks had passed. The men were exhausted, and the vault was waiting for the all-clear signal. We needed to send the defender back to initiate the final move, but we couldn't leave the new outpost vulnerable or unsustainable. The fortress complete. The construction at Tașbuga had consumed 1.5 months of relentless effort. The reward was worth the sacrifice. The mountain fortress was complete. The men had successfully gotten the mountain's oil well pumping, providing self-sufficient fuel, black blood, to run the generators and provide critical heat. They had also excavated and shored up a massive underground vault beneath the warehouse floor, secured by colossal gear-driven steel doors, making it the safest haven the community had ever known. The defender and the settler returned for the final time, ready to carry the 300 remaining people to their new home. The Exodus deployment. The community was loaded, and the final command structure for the dangerous blind journey was set. Giant 1, the Defender, Vanguard, piloted by Marius and crewed by Gelu, explosive expert. They would breach obstacles and engage initial threats. Giant 2, the Settler, the Ark, driven by Vasile, the organic mechanic, and crewed by Dan, the chemist. They were the mobile life support, protecting the vulnerable non-combatants in the center of the formation. The Iron Serpent, command rearguard, piloted by a reliable, heavily armed man named Bogdan, with Vlad, the elder, commanding the entire fleet from inside. The acid roller, advanced scout, flanker. This small, fast vehicle was me in charge, Nikolai. I needed to be the scout for the convoy, run ahead, spotting trouble and using its speed to flank enemies. If such event will happen. The final command. The engines of the 3 great vessels and the smaller acid roller roared to life inside the cavern. Vlad, the elder, seated inside the Iron Serpent, grabbed the radio mic, his voice cutting through the engine noise with finality. Attention all teams. Nikolai, you are running 5 miles ahead. Report anything larger than a dust cloud. Bogdan, you and Marius, maintain a distance of exactly 1 vehicle length between the giants. The Ark must be shielded at all times. We live or die protecting the center. The order was set, Marius acknowledged, and the defender lumbered out. Vasile followed, keeping the vulnerable Ark perfectly nestled. Bogdan drove the Iron Serpent out last, maintaining the tight shield. I was 5 miles ahead, navigating a tight, rocky canyon, a perfect natural choke point, when you saw the first glint of metal that wasn't wreckage. I hit the brakes. The acid roller stopped hard. Elder, this is Nikolai. Ambush ahead. Looks like tire dogs, maybe 50 blocking the canyon, I radioed quickly. Understood, Nikolai. Maintain distance. Marius, proceed slowly. Get Gelu ready. Vlad's voice was steady. But the tire dogs were smarter than usual. Before Marius could close the distance, they launched a furious volley of rusty metal and firebombs directly at the convoy. The defender was hit, and the attack forced the entire 3-truck formation to stall in the mouth of the canyon. We're stuck. Too many for the machine guns, Marius roared. A second later, a massive whump rattled the air as Gelu deployed a shaped charge on the cliff face, sending a wall of shrapnel into the largest group of raiders. The remaining tire dogs knew they had to breach the defenses quickly. They ignored the defender and began circling the central truck, the settler, the Ark. Their plan was to cut off the tail. Vlad's command was immediate. Nikolai, they are focusing on the Ark. You are our flanker. Flank left. Burn them. This was Meyer test. I threw the acid roller into a violent turn, its lightweight tires biting into the broken ground. The little machine became a terrifying blur of speed, vectoring directly into the path of the encircling raiders. The tire dogs pivoted, thrilled to see a small vehicle expose itself. They charged at me, their jagged scrap blades glinting. I didn't slow down. I hit the lever, and the specialized twin jets of the acid roller fired its weapon. A pressurized stream of volatile fuel and acid. Oil and debris on the canyon floor instantly ignited, turning the advancing raiders into a terrifying, screaming wall of flame. I corrected the turn, the acid roller screaming past the burning attackers to loop back and rejoin the front of the convoy. But as I raced past a hidden alcove, a massive, armored tire dog sprang out. It threw a reinforced rusty pipe at my windscreen, slamming into the acid roller's front armor. The impact sent a violent tremor through the cabin, shattering the outer layer of glass and leaving a deep, jagged dent in the frame. I managed to swerve, the acid roller fishtailing but holding firm, before I rejoined your advance position. The ambush was broken and the convoy was moving again. I pulled the acid roller over, heart hammering. I was alive. Damage report, Nikolai, Vlad demanded. I checked the controls. No structural damage to the engine, Elder. But I reached toward the cracked windscreen and carefully pulled out the scrap pipe. Lying amidst the broken glass and dust, I saw a small, meticulously coded symbol etched onto the rusty metal of the pipe, a stylized, 3-pointed crown. It didn't belong to any disorganized faction. It looked too precise, too old. Elder, they aren't tire dogs, I reported, my voice raw. Not entirely. There's a marker on the weapon that hit me, a crown. Someone organized this. Vlad leaned forward, his face grim as he studied the symbol through the radio lens. A crown, Nikolai? This changes everything. We are no longer just running from scavengers. We are running from a hostile power. They knew we were coming. The convoy speeds on, escaping the choking smoke of the canyon. Vlad turns to me, his eyes narrowed. contemplating the implications of the crown. "We have to move faster, but we cannot risk breaking formation," he said. "The question is, if they knew we were coming, what route will they try to cut next?" The appearance of this crowned enemy and their advanced tactics presents a severe new danger. What is the most immediate critical threat presented by the discovery of this organized power? The assassin in the ranks. Marius's voice crackled over the radio, pulling me out of the combat haze. "I think I saw that sign before, Vlad. If it is what I'm thinking, they are from the south. They call themselves the Brutes." I gripped the wheel of the acid roller tighter. The Brutes. Another pack of scavengers, sure, but the symbol, the crown. That felt different. "They aren't so many," Marius continued. "I think it's safe to say that with a small detour to lose them, we'll make it there. But something else is what is worrying me. We have to talk at the first rest stop, Vlad. It is important." The secrecy was a knife twist in my gut. Important? Why not on the radio? The only reason for that kind of silence was the fear of being heard by the wrong person. A saboteur? My mind raced through the faces of the community. Who would betray the hope of a new vault? The possibility was terrifying. We were fighting an external enemy, but the real threat might be riding right behind me in the convoy. I was running far out ahead when the elder's voice broke through the static. "Nikolai, when you reach the forest belt, scout in for a spot to hide the entire convoy off the road. We need to rest, kid. It's almost halfway, and with that hunt that just happened, the group is tired and scared." "I will give you a sign," I replied instantly. "The lead car, Marius, will see it. At that mark, he's gonna know to turn left." "Okay, kid. Be safe out there and find the spot fast." The metal clink. I pushed the acid roller until the hazy sunlight was nearly gone. The road dipped sharply and I sped toward the dark line of the forest belt. Thick, dead pines and tangled brush. We couldn't spend the night exposed. After 20 minutes, I found it. It was perfect. An abandoned logging trail hidden by a massive fallen pine. The trail branched off sharply and led into a natural bowl of earth, surrounded on 3 sides by dense protective woods. The fallen tree would be a perfect roadblock and the bowl would hide the bulk of the giants. I killed the acid roller's engine and radioed back. "Elder, I found a good spot. Logging trail, 3 o'clock off the main road, marked by a massive fallen pine. It's deep and concealed. Perfect for the night." Vlad's voice crackled. "Excellent work, Nikolai. We will be there in 20 minutes. Get out of the roller and clear the last bit of the trail so Marius can get the defender through. Be quiet and stay ready." I jumped out of the cab, grabbing the plasma cutter. The forest air was damp and cold and the woods were fading into deep, inky shadow. I moved toward the fallen pine, preparing to cut. But as I raised the cutter, I stopped. I heard a sound. Faint, rhythmic, and entirely wrong. It wasn't the wind. It was a repetitive metallic clink. 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 It sounded like tools, or maybe someone sharpening a blade, and it was coming from deep inside the natural bowl. The spot I had just told the elder was safe. It was occupied. It was... My blood ran cold. The Brutes, or worse, someone else, was waiting. The convoy, with the Ark at its heart, was 20 minutes away, driving straight into an unknown, hidden danger. I had to move now. The metallic sound continued, unaware I was listening. The metallic clink, clink, clink jolted me back into the acid roller. I didn't need to confirm the presence of danger. The sound alone was confirmation that the spot was compromised. I threw the vehicle into reverse and sped away from the logging trail, kicking up dust and leaves. I grabbed the radio mic, my voice strained. "Elder, don't stop at the mark I told you. I saw a sign on a pine. It's a gang there. The Scalpers. I will meet you on the way back before you reach the mark. We need to find another way." There was radio silence for a terrifying minute. I drove the acid roller back toward the approaching convoy, watching the headlights of the Defender grow larger. Then Vlad replied, "Nikolai, that is a good call. We are stopping here where we are. You come down and look on the right side of the road to see the sign on the pine where to come and meet us, okay? Look for the sign, Nikolai, don't miss it." His tone was steady, but the instruction made my heart pound. A sign on a pine? How could a pine tree suddenly have a sign? I was scared. That minute of silence and the sudden cryptic instruction suggested Marius's earlier suspicion might be real. Could someone in our group have a way to communicate with the outsiders? From that moment on, I decided I had to code my language through the radio. But first, we needed to meet and establish that code face to face. I found the convoy stalled just off the main road. I pulled the acid roller up to the side of the Iron Serpent and jumped out. Ignoring the nervous glances of Bogdan, I hurried up to Vlad's window. "Elder, we need to move now," I whispered fiercely, glancing at the other trucks. "I can't talk here. We need a different spot and a communication code established face to face." Vlad read the desperation and fear in my eyes. His expression hardened. We move now," he commanded. He sent the signal to the fleet. Then, he ordered Marius to disembark the Defender and take the keys to my acid roller. "Marius, you ride with Nikolai in the roller and lead us to the hidden roads you know. Find a spot to rest there," Vlad instructed. Marius nodded, his eyes meeting mine. He understood. This time, our communication to the convoy would be different. Coded as only me, the Elder, and Marius would know, eliminating any leaks from our communication if there was indeed an insider among us. We quickly sped off in the acid roller, leading the 3 massive, lumbering vessels onto a network of narrow, obscured trails only Marius could remember from his old job days. We needed to put distance between us and any trackers before we stopped to talk. After an hour of twisting, aggressive driving, Marius directed me into a dried riverbed, completely hidden beneath a dense overgrowth of shattered highway columns. It was a dark, oppressive spot, but it was secure. The moment the engines were silenced, Vlad hurried out of the Iron Serpent to join us. The 3 of us stood in the cold, dusty riverbed, the silence amplifying the importance of what was about to be said. "All right, Marius," Vlad said, his voice low and tight. "You saw the crown. You said you knew the brutes. What is it you couldn't say over the radio?" Marius looked at me, then at the Elder, his face grim. "The brutes aren't just scavengers, Vlad. They are an organized militia, but that's not the problem." He lowered his voice further. "The crown isn't their symbol. It's the symbol of the Iron King, a brutal warlord who rules the southern oil fields. The brutes are just his shock troops. And the king, he has a network of spies and informants. He pays people with fuel, with medicine, things we barely have ourselves." Marius paused, running a weary hand over his face. "The reason I couldn't say it over the radio is this, Vlad. I recognize the pine tree you mentioned, the one Nikolai was supposed to use for the signal." He looked directly at the Elder. "That pine tree stood right outside the compound where the Iron King set up his central command post 3 years ago. If the scalpers, or the brutes, were waiting for us at that spot, it means they had intel on our route and our exact stopping point. Someone from the vault gave them our itinerary." The Elder went still, the revelation hitting him like a physical blow. The unspoken fear, betrayal from within, was now confirmed. "We have to assume the enemy knows where we are going," Vlad whispered. "They know about Tașbuga Peak. The unmasking of the traitor, the confirmation of the internal leak hit me instantly. I thought about the sheer number of trips the rotating crew of 16 men had made back to the old vault to haul materials. It wasn't one man, but a whole group exposed to danger. It must be one of the ones that worked on the new vault, I reasoned, my voice low and urgent. When they went back with the truck, they probably got stopped by them, the brutes, and they offered them a deal. Spy for them, or they die. It's the oldest trick." Vlad's face was a mask of cold resolve. "I guess we reduced the number of the suspects then, and we might need to leave them here with very little supplies when we leave this spot. But first, we have to survive. We have to drive fast. And Marius?" The Elder turned to the mechanic. "You know these lands better than anyone. If you know a fork of roads, we have to make it there. They're going to track us, but from that fork, we'll split the fleet to cover our tracks, lose them, and then meet again." The Elder was already planning the deception, using the convoy itself as bait and cover. But Marius interrupted, shaking his head firmly. "No, Elder. It's not because they saw the road," Marius said, relief battling with the grim seriousness in his voice. "I made sure they didn't see the road that leads to the new vault. They saw the place and they worked there, but they don't know the road that leads there." He went on to explain his security protocol. "I drove them to the spot myself every time. I blindfolded them before we got to the final path, and I got the one who could drive to continue the trip back to the vault alone. I had them swap seats just before the main road, every time. So it's safe to say that they don't know the new vault's exact location or route." Marius's foresight was a massive relief. The destination was safe. Only the current route and stopping points were compromised. So the leak isn't about the destination, it's about the convoy's movements, Vlad concluded, breathing a small sigh of relief before the gravity returned. Someone knew our immediate itinerary and our intended rest spot. That means the traitor is one of the men who handled the final loading and scheduling, and they are riding in one of those 3 trucks right now. The bitter choice. The betrayal had a taste like ash in my mouth. We were no longer fighting scavengers. We were fighting an enemy with spies and an itinerary. Marius looked straight at Vlad in the murky light of the riverbed. "Hey, you were a military man," he challenged the elder. "Then you should remember the Morse code." Vlad's eyes flickered, the memory rekindled. "Yup, I sure was," he affirmed. "Here's how we're gonna do it. Don't speak over the radio at all. Just press the button in short, coded signals. That way, we keep safe." He didn't need to finish the thought about the men we had just been discussing. The silence hung heavy, but the decision was inevitable. "But we have to leave those 16 people right here. We've got no choice." My stomach churned, but I stopped questioning them. The life of the community of the Ark was all that mattered. Marius moved with grim efficiency. He took a guard with him and walked back to the Ark, Vasilei's truck, signaling the 16 men who had been part of the construction rotation to disembark. He didn't accuse them, he simply ordered them out. They protested, they shouted, but they obeyed. Then, one by one, he made sure they hadn't hidden a radio or a communication device on their persons or in their meager bags. With the suspects standing stranded and bewildered in the middle of the dark forest, we locked the truck and moved. As I drove the acid roller back to the lead position, guiding Marius in the Defender, I couldn't help but think of those men. I did feel bad for them, to be left there in the middle of nowhere, and I was sure they would be killed by the Iron King's brutes if they found them. It was a cold, brutal choice, but the life of the 300 remaining people was also important. I forced myself to focus on the road and the safety of the convoy. A new life forged. We drove fast, leaving the main road entirely, relying on Marius's deep, almost forgotten knowledge of the territory. We split the convoy at a crucial fork, the Defender taking the risky, aggressive route as bait, while the Settler and the Iron Serpent took a hidden, longer route. We used short, deliberate clicks on the radio, our new silent language, to confirm our movements. We got back together hours later, confirming we had lost any immediate trackers. We finally reached the new home. Tasbuga Peak was just as secure as we had left it. The massive log fence and the steel-plated warehouse stood like a promise. The site of the operational oil pump was a beacon of hope. We moved immediately into defensive posture. The black blood collected in the buried reservoir was our weapon. We splashed that crude oil all over the tree trunk fence, a flammable perimeter waiting for a spark. We placed the few remaining sentinels on the new high posts, armed with their best weapons and a short-range radio for Morse code alerts. The rest of us, the command crew, the specialists, and the entire community, retreated into the massive underground vault we had dug. We locked the gear-driven doors and settled into the silent, cold earth. The first night passed in nervous silence. Nothing happened. We kept quiet for another few days, just in case the Iron King and his men were around to make sure they wouldn't hear any noise to locate us. The silence was agonizing, but necessary. Nearly a week passed. Quiet. It was in that quiet that the good peace finally started for us. It was good and peaceful. We were safe, a treasure in the dust, The tense days of silence bled into a week of focused, quiet work. We were safe, hidden deep within the earth, and the relief was palpable. Young and old, we all pitched in, continuing to build out our new home and create sustainable living conditions. The mountain was full of the remnants of the before world, and our digging often yielded small treasures. I was scouting in one of the metal barracks that was part of the distribution park when I saw something huge. It was taller than me, looking like an engine mounted on two thick rails. The wheels were busted, but the thing was immense. I ran back to the warehouse where Marius was trying to figure out the oil pump couplings. "Hey, I want to show you something," I said, catching my breath. "I just found it, and I don't know what to make of it." Marius looked up, wiping oil from his brow. "What does it look like, kid?" "Looks like a big engine on wheels, but the wheels are busted." "Why is it so big?" Marius shook his head. "Show me, kid. It might be a pump, but show me." When we reached the barracks, the second Marius laid eyes on the behemoth, a huge smile broke across his dirty face. It was the first time I'd seen him genuinely happy since we left the old vault. "What is it, Marius? Tell me so I can smile too," I asked, practically vibrating with excitement. He looked back at me, his eyes gleaming. "Nikolai, you just made my day. This is a big industrial generator, kid. A backup power source for the huge pumps that were moving the crude oil down the mountain to the bigger depot. This can easily source power to the little motor of the oil well and power our new home at the same time, no problems." "Wow, is that what it is? Why is it so big?" Marius laughed, the sound rusty and genuine. "It's an industrial generator, kid. It was meant to power the pumps that moved the crude oil down the mountain to be processed into red blood, gasoline, and diesel. This thing can handle our whole load. We need to install all the lab parts we have. If we're missing anything, we need to look around here. They had their own lab here in the distribution park. We just need to find it." I was thrilled imagining the warm lights and the steady hum of power throughout our new home. Then curiosity got the better of me. I looked at Marius, the simple mechanic who knew more about the remnants of the old world than anyone. "How do you know so much that not many of us know? How long did it take you to learn all these things you know, Marius? What's your secret?" Marius stood beside the dormant generator, the smile fading into a look of quiet contemplation. He kicked lightly at one of the busted rails, the metal ringing softly. "Secret?" he repeated. "There's no secret, Nikolai. There's just the truth of what you have to do to survive." He leaned against the cold generator housing and began to speak, his gaze distant, looking past the metal walls of the barracks. "Kid, when I was young, just like you, I finished high school with a profession, and because Moinesti's economy was based on the oil industry, my high school profile was mechanic on industrial machinery." He tapped the side of the massive engine block. "That training included this type of generator, pump mechanics, dozers engines, and the big 24-valve engines for fracking installations that run on diesel." A glint of genuine excitement returned to his eyes. "If we can find one of those types of engine, a big diesel like that, we are set for life," he said, smiling and looking up towards the shattered ceiling. "I hope only for now, but if we find one diesel engine like that, it will become the soul of our vault, believe me. The immediate task." Marius's background explained everything. He wasn't just guessing, he was reading schematics and history from the before world. His knowledge, combined with the power of this massive industrial generator, meant we could soon stop relying on the scavenged, fragile power sources and ensure our survival through the long, dark mountain winter. We needed to act immediately to get this giant humming. Marius slapped the side of the generator. "All right, Nikolai, now we work. This thing is the real deal. It just needs its core brain, the electrical controls and the high-grade lubrication fluids. They wouldn't have left those exposed to the elements." He looked at me, giving me a serious task that only I, the scout, could handle. The distribution park was massive, but all the sensitive electrical and chemical parts were kept in a dedicated sealed facility. It was built into a small hill just beyond the oil pump. They called it the Hydroaesthetics Lab, but it was really just where the engineers kept their spares and their special fluids. He pointed back toward the direction of the oil pump. "Go back there. Look for a structure built into the earth. Not a barracks, but a concrete bunker with a single, heavily reinforced steel door. They'll have the control module and the synthetic lubricant we need for this generator. Without the module, it's just scrap metal. The discovery of the lab. I nodded to Marius. Okay, I'll have a look around, and I will yell out loud if I find anything. But we have a deal. You have to tell me more about the before world after we settle for the night, Marius. I started making my way towards the northeast corner of the fenced camp, several hundreds of meters away from the main area of the vault. Nikolai, Marius's voice called after me. A deal is a deal, and I honor my deals the way I can best. But I want you to be very careful and be questioning anything that doesn't feel right to you, okay? Any sound, any smell, any object you might see and you don't understand, come back and let me know. Don't touch, just come back, and we will try to understand what it is that you experienced or have seen. It is for your safety, Nikolai. I got a bit angry because he was still treating me like a 5-year-old kid. I was a young man and I knew what I was doing. But then something in my mind clicked, and I immediately understood the purpose of his directives. He wanted to make sure I would understand the danger, and to be safe because I was a part of him he didn't want to lose. So I listened to the directions he gave me, and headed toward the northeast corner of the camp. Once I reached close enough, something caught my eye, a faint piece of surface rust interrupting the dirt. I got a stick, scratched at it, and knocked. It sounded like a hollow place underneath. I knew I had found something interesting. I uncovered the surface and it turned out to be a very heavy door. I tried to open it, but it was massive. I went back to Marius. Marius was looking for some wires when I stopped him. Marius, I think I just found something that you called a bunker. I found a very heavy door. I need your help to open it so we can have a look inside. And this way you will know that I am safe too, as I will be with you close enough for you to stop me if I try to do something wrong. Will you come with me now, or are you too busy? Okay, kid, not that busy. Plus, I might be able to find what I was looking for even in there, so let's go have a look. Once we reached the spot, Marius had no hesitation. Nikolai, this is the type of thing that was called a bunker. You found it. Let's try to open the door. We managed to get the door creaking open. A noxious smell immediately hit us. It was a smell I couldn't explain, but Marius immediately clarified it. Ah, that smells really bad, like rotting eggs, he said, looking at me seriously. Watch your steps, kid. Some spilled acid can lay on the ground here, and it might even burn your feet if you step on it, so watch out. Look where you step, okay? I am serious. This can even kill you. We left the big, heavy door open, covered our noses with our shirts, and stepped in, going down the stairs. I was holding the little gas lamp which was burning our crude oil for light. As we descended, Marius, navigating the gloom ahead of me, knocked his toe on something and whispered, "Kid, hold the light here. Something is close. I need to see." I quickly moved the lamp, and in the increased light, I saw the base of a long, narrow table made of cement. On the table were many different shapes of glass bottles. "This is the lab, just as you said it would be," I yelled. The price of knowledge. You need to tell me more things you know so I can make notes that can help us even more, and you need to share your knowledge with the rest of us, I urged him. Because if something happens to you, then we won't be able to continue surviving. Marius, this is a serious thing. Do it for us so we will better understand the dangers and how to help ourselves, and that will make it easier for you too. Marius looked at me, dead serious, the flickering lamplight casting deep shadows on his face. Kid, knowledge means power, and if that falls in the wrong hands, we're doomed. Do you understand the implications? He straightened up. I know it might sound unfair, but it is for our own good. I will teach you all I know, so when you get to be strong enough to help others, I want you to be capable and armed with everything I know. And Vlad's knowledge too. So you will become a good leader if something happens to me and Vlad. Do you understand me? In this situation, it is good this knowledge is held by very few people. Remember what just happened days ago. They did have our information, our knowledge, and they gave it to the Iron King to come and get us. Is this what you want? We need to be very careful with this knowledge. It can be very dangerous at this moment in time to share it. He softened slightly, We help them too, so it's not just our knowledge. We try to get better and not to repeat the same mistake that has been done in the past. Let's get what we need to create our lab, or we can clean and rebuild this one. And we're going to make sure it is very safe within our camp. So, a big and very strong fence all around the camp. And we need to do sentinel shifts for our safety. We have to work together as a whole, all of us. The refrigerated vault. Seconds later, after he explained the heavy price of knowledge, he whispered again, barely audible over the hum of the oil lamp. Kid, I think we just found our treasure, right here and now. I was confused. What kind of treasure can we find in this place? It's damp and smells like, well, rotting eggs, you said, I asked. Are you talking about some lab treasure, or are you just talking about the smell? A short, dry laugh came from his direction. Kid, I think it's more than just the small and weird-shaped glass bottles. Come closer to me and you'll see what I'm talking about. I got closer, holding the lamp steady. Can you see what I'm seeing? He asked. I looked around, but I didn't understand much until my light hit something on the far wall. It looked like a metal door with a little wheel on it, set deep into the concrete. What is that, Marius? You talking about that door in the wall? He looked at me, a triumphant smirk on his face. Yes. Take a guess. Thinking about our previous home and the armored entrance of the Iron Serpent, I ventured, a vault? That is exactly what it is. He smiled. Only this one closes a refrigerated room. It can contain some good things we need, like samples of experiments with the black blood and red blood chemicals. It might have detailed notes for each sample. Plus, if the vault is big enough, it might have a separate room for some type of vaccines and medications that they kept on hand in case something went wrong with their experiments. He pointed to a small box near the base of the door. And this little thing next to the door, that's an air compressor device, which is very helpful to us. I looked at the compressor. It wasn't a little thing, it was pretty big. But Marius always had a way of making jokes to comfort me and make me feel safe. I never told him that, fearing he'd treat me like a kid. But it was the truth. That was when I asked him, "Can we get some men to help us clean this bunker and rebuild the lab?" He looked at me, his playful expression immediately gone. "Kid, we have to work on it ourselves. If others get involved and start to understand some things in here, they will demand access. And anything we try to work on in the future will become a blackmail tool against us. We will help everyone, but access to some places has to be restricted, just as it was in the before world. Only qualified personnel for a specific place had access to it. We need to maintain the controlled access too for our safety. Do you understand what I am telling you? What implications can that have? Like in the past, certain things are meant to be only for certain people, not because of greed, but because it's connected to knowledge. And like I said earlier, what does knowledge mean?" He forced me to reply, and I said, "It is power." "Exactly, kid. That is the reason this should have restricted access, just like the knowledge, at least for now in this time. We help them too, so it's not just our knowledge, because we try to get better and not to repeat the same mistake that has been done in the past. Let's get what we need to create our lab, or we can clean and rebuild this one, and we're going to make sure it is very safe within our camp. So, a big and very strong fence all around the camp, and we need to do sentinel shifts for our safety. We have to work together as a whole, all of us." Reporting the treasure. "Let's go, kid," Marius said, his tone shifting back to the urgency of the moment. "We go tell Vlad about our findings and we'll see what the best next decision is to be taken, okay?" It was getting dark. We had spent time at the bunker rearranging some things, clearing small hazards, making space so we wouldn't run any risks when we're going to go back in, and checking the small refrigerated vault door inside. We got out, closed the heavy door, and made sure no one saw where we emerged from. Then we hurried back to report to Vlad. Marius was brimming with excitement, and I shared it. This was a real treasure for us. Rare things to find in these times. Vlad welcomed us smiling. "Hey, kids. What is that makes you two smile at me? What is about to go down, huh?" Marius immediately grabbed my shoulder, a clear sign that I should be the one to tell him. As I was the one who found the bunker, I understood, and I started reporting. "Paco, I think we just found a treasure," I said, using the elder's nickname, which always made him pay attention. "It is at the northeast corner of our camp, and we need to make sure it's protected for our own safety." I was so proud to use Marius's words. It felt good. I felt like a grown man saying that. Marius looked at me and smiled. He felt proud of me for understanding the security protocol we'd established in the bunker. Then, he looked at Vlad with a serious face. "Is learning good, Vlad. He will be a good leader someday." Vlad called me over. "Kid, come here and come close." He spoke softly. "You're becoming a wise man, Nikolai, and I like that. I want you to know that I am very proud of you. And I know your mom. She's proud of you just as we are. She believed in you from the time you were the size of a beer bottle. She loved you, Nikolai, and I want you to remember that. You've proved that you loved her by the way you conduct yourself, and that is what our family was about. Respect, love, and discipline. You have all those qualities too. Very proud of you, Nikolai," he continued, his voice shifting to the teacher again. "And just like before, when you don't understand things, ask. It's not a shame to not know everything. Nobody knows everything. And what makes a person wise is asking, questioning, even when he understands things, you hear me? That is who you want to become, and that will help you a long way, Nikolai." Then he turned to Marius. "That treasure needs an expert. So call Dan the chemist, and keep it low, Marius. No details to anyone. We will let them know what is necessary for them to know. You get that, Marius? Just Dan." Marius left to look for Dan. A few minutes later, he returned with the chemist. "The man is here, Vlad. We're good to start the conversation." The new strategic assessment. Vlad sat us down in a tight circle, Marius, Dan, and me, away from the eyes and ears of the rest of the community. He continued, his voice shifting to the teacher again. "And just like before, when you don't understand things, ask. It's not a shame to not know everything. Nobody knows everything. And what makes a person wise is asking, questioning, even when he understands things, you hear me? That is who you want to become, and that will help you a long way, Nikolai." Then he turned to Marius. "That treasure needs an expert. So call Dan the chemist and keep it low, Marius. No details to anyone. We will let them know what is necessary for them to know. You get that, Marius? Just Dan." Marius left to look for Dan. A few minutes later, he returned with the chemist. "The man is here, Vlad. We're good to start the conversation." The new strategic assessment. Vlad sat us down in a tight circle, Marius, Dan, and me, away from the eyes and ears of the rest of the community. "All right, Dan," Vlad began, his voice barely above a whisper. "Nikolai here found the old hydroaesthetics lab at the northeast perimeter. It's got a massive generator waiting to be rebuilt, and a refrigerated vault. But the bunker is full of chemicals and smells like poison. We need two things from you immediately. A, confirmation on how to safely retrieve the generator control module and synthetic lubricants, and B, an assessment on how to decontaminate and utilize the rest of the facility, especially the refrigerated section, for our medical supplies." Dan, quiet and focused, immediately understood the gravity of the situation. He was the only one capable of moving safely in that environment. Now that the team is assembled and the objective is clear, generator parts and lab safety, the priority shifts from scouting to safe retrieval and assessment. Securing the lab and generator, Dan the chemist immediately went to gather materials. He knew he needed to transform the bunker into a safe working environment, which meant creating a makeshift protective gear and bringing his diagnostic tools. While he worked on that protocol, Marius and I focused on the giant generator itself, working out how to safely retrieve the air compressor motor once Dan gave us the all-clear. It took a few days for Dan to transform the bunker. He managed to neutralize the worst of the chemical hazards and ensure the air was breathable enough for us to work without specialized suits. Meanwhile, Marius and I found the final parts we needed for the generator. We connected the colossal machine to the motor of the oil well, and everything was ready for a trial run. The only thing missing was the right kind of blood, the high-grade fuel and lubricants needed to ensure a clean start. Just as we were preparing to check the final wiring, Dan came around. He whispered, "The bunker is ready, Marius. We need to put the parts of the lab together to function, and for that, I need more hands to help me." We agreed to go with him immediately to retrieve the air compressor motor and whatever else we needed to fully utilize the lab. The mistakes of the before world. Days later, after we managed to fix and secure both treasures, the generator and the lab, we finally had a moment of free time one evening. This was the time I'd been waiting for. I asked Marius to tell me more about the before world. I needed to know how people were then, what truly happened to the human principles that were supposed to keep them safe, and what mistakes we absolutely shouldn't repeat if we wanted to survive and build a lasting home. Marius, can you tell me what were some of the motives that led to everything collapsing? I know you told me about the 10 Years' War that happened, but what was before that? What led up to the war? I asked. I saw his face change, not in anger, but with deep pain. He started telling me, his voice a low, heavy rumble. "Nikolai, all that mess was preventable. It was about invented problems that the politicians played around with to gain more people to vote them so they could be in power. If there wasn't a problem, they created one for pure stunt, just to have something to talk about and please other people's beliefs. We weren't united at all. If anything, we were more divided than ever before in the whole history of any European state." He explained the tactics. There was one thing, a card they always played for their audience. It was a thing they called illegal immigrants. With that alone, they managed to divide all societies into small groups, disrespecting each other. Beautiful cities became sites that were looking really bad, dystopian for those times. The rule of law was only for the poor as the corruption was raising everywhere, where the rich became even more rich, and the poor even poorer. At some point, people couldn't afford to pay their electricity bills, water bills, taxes, and they got thrown out of their homes. Industries started to fire people out of their jobs as new technologies advanced. They implemented these advances in a rush, not thinking about the consequences. Later, digital IDs became a thing back then, and I stopped him. IDs? What were those used for? Nikolai, they were digital IDs and everything was connected to that. The money, which was also digital, meaning virtual, not physical paper, access to doctors, everything was made through the same way, digital. If you said something that they didn't like, with one click they immediately cut your access to your money, to doctors. You couldn't pay the bills, and you ended up on the streets. You remained alive, but in that system, you were like non-existent, deleted. Was that another reason why it got to the 10 Years' War? I asked. No, Nikolai, but it contributed to the direction where the United States of Europe, USE, was heading. The major factor was that they spent a lot of money to finance the war instead of seeking peace. All of the USE members did this. Few people came out to say that it wasn't a good decision, but they were very few and insignificant for the USE leaders to take them seriously enough. If we all had been united as citizens of the USE, that would never have happened. But we haven't been like that, and they took advantage. They pumped money into the war machines, while people were starving and sleeping on the streets. And they wanted to destroy Russia as they thought they were more powerful than they were. That decision led to this world as we know it now, Nikolai. I took notes because I wanted all this information to be recorded for our future, to have something to guide us toward a better world when all the waters return and we, as humans, start to travel to other lands or others come around. It was important to be prepared for such times. The book was kept safe so all that information stayed protected for a greater good. After I put the book aside, I asked Marius, "How are we going to build the world that we want? How are those homes built? You need to tell me more so we know what to create to help us when the time comes for rebuilding the world." He looked at me. Nikolai, we are very far from that moment. So until then, we have to establish what men in our community know, what knowledge they have about jobs that were essential, so we can establish a hierarchy. It's like a chain of command, so we will know who is in command of different things that we have to do. And if something fails, we will know why it failed and can work out a solution to get it done. That is the power of knowledge that can change our lives. That will be a moment for knowledge to be shared, but only needed knowledge for the task at hand. You get that, Nikolai? I know that we have good men in here with a good knowledge base, and with what we know, we can fill the gaps. That will help us to prevail and survive, creating better ways to collect resources and not to waste them as they did in the past. That was an eye-opener for me, and I took that very seriously. But I still needed more. For now, it was enough, as we needed to rest because the next day we had many things to get done.